This is continued Chapter 3 from Directive Principle of State Policy. According to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the Directive Principles of State Policy is a novel feature of the Indian Constitution. They are enumerated in Part 4 of the Constitution. They can be classified into three broad categories: socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. The directive principles are meant for promoting the idea of social and economic democracy. They seek they seek to establish a welfare state in India. However, unlike fundamental rights, the directives are non-justiciable in nature. That is, they are not enforceable by the court of for their violation. Yet the Constitution itself declares that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in lawmaking. Hence, they impose a moral obligation on the state authorities for their application, but the real force sanction behind them is political, that is, public opinion. In the Minerva Mills case, the Supreme Court held that the Indian Constitution is founded on the bedrock of the balance between the fundamental rights and the directive principles. Fundamental duties. The original Constitution did not provide for the fundamental duties of the citizen. These were added during the operation of internal emergency 1975 to 77 by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 on the recommendation of Sovereign Singh Committee. The 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added one more fundamental duty. The Part 4A of the Constitution, which consists of only one Article 51A, specifies the 11 fundamental duties, which to respect the Constitution, national flag, and national anthem, to protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of the country, to promote the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people, to preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture, and so on. The fundamental duties serve as a reminder to citizens that while enjoying their rights, they have also to be quite conscious of the duties they owe to their country, their society, and to their fellow citizens. However, like directive principles, the duties are also non-justiciable in nature. A secular state. The Constitution of India stands for a secular state, hence, it does not uphold any particular religion as the official religion of the Indian state. The following provisions of the Constitution reveal the secular characters of this Indian state. The term secular was added to the preamble of the Indian Constitution by 46th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. The preamble secures to all the citizens of India liberty of belief, faith, and worship. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law and equal protection of laws. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the ground of religion. Equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters of public employment. All the persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to freely profess and practice and propagate any religion. Every religion denomination or any of its sections shall have the right to manage its religious affairs. No person shall be compelled to pay any taxes for the promotion of a particular religion. No religion instruction shall be provided in any educational institution maintained by the state. Any section of the citizens shall have the right to conserve its distinct language, script, or culture. All minorities shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. The state shall endeavor to secure for all the citizens a uniform civil code, Article 44. The Western concept of secularism connotes a complete separation between the religion, the church, and the state, the politics. This negative concept of secularism is inapplicable in the Indian situation where the society is multi-religious. Hence, the Indian constitution embodies a positive concept of secularism, giving equal respect to all religions and protecting all religions equally. Moreover, the constitution has also abolished the old system of communal representation, that is, reservation of seats in the legislature on the basis of religion. However, it provides for the temporary reservations of seats for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to ensure adequate representations to them. Universal adult franchisee. The Indian Constitution adopts universal adult franchisee as the basis of elections to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. Every citizen who is not less than 18 years of age has the right to vote without any discrimination of caste, race, religion, sex, literacy, wealth, and so on. The voting age has reduced to 18 years from 21 years in 1989 by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. The introduction of universal adult franchisee by the constitution makers was a bold experiment and highly remarkable in view of the vast size of the country, its huge population, high poverty, social inequality, and overwhelming illiteracy. Universal adult franchisee makes democracy broad-based, enhances the self-respect and prestige of the common people, upholds the principle of equality, enables minority to protect their interests, and open up new hopes and vistas for weaker sections. Single citizenship. Though the Indian Constitution is federal and envisages a dual polity, center and state, it provides only for a single citizenship, that is, Indian citizenship. In countries like USA, on the other hand, each person is not only a citizen of USA but also a citizen of the particular state to which he belongs. Thus, he owes allegiance to both and enjoys dual set of rights, one conferred by the national government and another by the state government. In India, all citizens, irrespective of the state in which they are born or reside, enjoy the same political and civil rights of the citizenships all over the country, and no discrimination is made between them. Despite the constitutional provision for the single citizenship and uniform rights for all the people, India has been witnessing the communal rights, class conflicts, caste wars, linguistic clashes, and ethnic disputes. This means that the cherished goal of the constitution makers to build a united, integrated Indian nation has not been fully realized. Independent bodies. The Indian Constitution not only provides for the legislative, executive, and judicial organs of the government, central or state, but also establishes certain independent bodies. They are envisaged by the Constitution as the bulwarks of the democratic system of the government in India. These are Election Commission to ensure free and fair elections to the Parliament, the state legislatures, the Office of President of India, and the Office of Vice President of India, Comptroller, and Auditor General of India to audit the accounts of the central and state governments. He acts as the guardian of the public purse and comments on the legality and propriety of government expenditure. Union Public Service Commission to conduct examination for recruitment to all India services and higher central services to advise the President on disciplinary matters. State Public Service Commissions in every state to conduct examination for recruitment to state services and to advise the governor of disciplinary matters. The Constitution ensures the independence of these bodies through various provisions like security of tenure, fixed service, condition, expenses being charged or the Consolidated Fund of India, and so on. Emergency provisions. The Indian Constitution contains elaborate emergency provisions to enable the President to meet any extraordinary situation effectively. The rationality behind the incorporation of these provisions is to safeguard the sovereignty, unity, and integrity and security of the country, the democratic political system, and the Constitution. The Constitution envisages three types of emergencies, namely national emergency on the ground of war or external aggression or armed rebellion. Article 352, state emergency, president's rule on the ground of failure of constitutional machinery in the states. Article 356, or the failure to comply with the directions of the center. Article 365, and financial emergency on the ground of threat to the financial stability or credit of India. Article 360. During an emergency, the central government becomes all powerful and the states go into total control of the center. It converts the federal structures into the unitary one without a formal amendment of the constitution. This kind of transformation of the political system from federal during the normal times to unitary during emergency is a unique feature of Indian constitution. Three-tier government. Originally, the Indian Constitution, like any other federal constitution, provided for a dual polity and contained provisions with regard to the organizations and powers of the center and the state. Later, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts 1992 have added a three-tier of government, that is local, which is not found in any other constitution of the world. The 73rd Amendment Act of 1992 have constitutional recognition to the panchayats, rural local governments, by adding a new Part 9 and a new Schedule 11 to the Constitution. Similarly, the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 have constitutional recognition to the municipalities, urban local governments, by adding a new Part 9A, a new Schedule 12 to the Constitution. Cooperative societies. The 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011 gave a constitutional status and protection to cooperative societies. In this context, it made the following three changes in the Constitution. It made the right to form cooperative society a fundamental right. It included a new directive principle of state policy on promotion of cooperative societies, Article 43B. It added a new Part 9B in the Constitution, which entitled as the Cooperative Society, Article 243ZH to 243ZT. The new Part 9B contains various provisions to ensure the cooperative societies in the country function in a democratic, professional, autonomous, and economically sound manner. It empowers the Parliament in respect of multi-state cooperative societies and the state legislature in respect of the other cooperative societies to make the appropriate law. Criticism of the Constitution. The Constitution of India, as framed and adopted by Constituent Assembly of India, has been criticized on the following grounds. A borrowed constitution. The critics opined that the Indian Constitution contains nothing new and original. They described it as the borrowed constitution, or a bag of borrowing, or a hodgepodge constitution, or a patchwork of several documents of the world constitutions. However, this criticism is unfair and illogical because the framers of the Constitution made necessary modifications in the features borrowed from other constitutions for their suitability to the Indian conditions, at the same time avoiding their faults. While answering the above criticism in the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, said, One likes to ask whether there can be any new in constitution framed at this hour in the history of the world. More than 100 years have rolled over when the first written constitution was drafted. It has been followed by many countries reducing their constitution to writing. What the scope of constitution should has been long been settled. Similarly, what are the fundamentals of the constitution are recognized all over the world. Given these facts, all constitutions in their main provisions must look similar. The only new thing, if there can be any, in a constitution framed so late in the day are variations made to remove the faults and to accommodate it to the needs of the country. The charge of producing a blind copy of constitution of other country is based, and I am sure, on an inadequate study of the constitution, a carbon copy of 1935 Act. The critics said that the framers of the Constitution have included a large number of the provisions from the Government of India Act of 1935 in the Constitution of India. Hence, they call the Constitution as the carbon copy of 1935 Act or an amended version of 1935 Act. For example, N. Srivastavan observed that the Indian Constitution is both in language and substance a close copy of Act of 1935. Similarly, Sir Ivor Jennings, a British constitutionalist, said the Constitution derives directly from the Government of India Act of 1935, from which, in fact, many of its provisions are copied almost textually. Further, P.R. Deshmukh, a member of Constituent Assembly, commented that the Constitution is essentially the Government of India Act of 1935 with only adult franchise, he added. The same Dr. B.R. Ambedkar answered the above criticism in Constituent Assembly in the following way. As to the accusation that the draft Constitution has reproduced a good part of provisions of the Government of India Act 1935, I make no apologies. There is nothing to be ashamed of in borrowing. It involves no plagiarism. Nobody holds any patent rights in the fundamental ideas of the Constitution. What I am sorry about is that the provisions taken from the Government of India Act 1935 relate mostly to the details of the administration. Un-Indian or anti-Indian. According to the critics, the Indian Constitution is un-Indian or anti-Indian because it does not reflect the political traditions and the spirit of India. They said that the foreign nature of the Constitution make it unsuitable to the Indian situations or unworkable in India. In this context, K. Hanumanthai, a member of Constituent Assembly, commented, "We wanted the music of Veena or Sitar, but here we have the music of English band. That was because our constitution makers were educated that way." Similarly, Lokanath Mishra, another member of the Constituent Assembly, criticized the constitution as a slavish intimation of the West, much more a slavish surrender to the West. Further, Laxmikanth Sahu, also a member of Constituent Assembly, observed the ideals on which this draft constitution is framed have no manifest relation to the fundamental spirit of India. This constitution would not prove suitable and would break down soon after being brought up into operation. An un-Gandhian constitution. According to the critics, the Indian constitution is un-Gandhian because it does not contain the philosophy and ideals of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of Indian nation. They opine that the constitution should have been raised and built upon village panchayats and district panchayats. In this context, the same members of Constituent Assembly, K. Hanumanthai, said that is exactly the kind of constitution Mahatma Gandhi did not want and did not envisage. T. Prakasam, another member of the Constituent Assembly, attributed this lapse to Ambedkar's non-participation in Gandhian movement and antagonism towards Gandhian ideas. Elephantine size. The critics stated that the Indian constitution is too bulky and too detailed and contains some unnecessary elements. Sir Everard Jennings, a British constitutionalist, observed that the provisions borrowed were not always well selected and the constitution, generally speaking, was too long and complicated. In this context, H.V. Kamath, a member of Constituent Assembly, commented, "The emblem and the crest that we have selected for assembly is an elephant. It is perhaps in consonance with that our constitution too is the bulkiest that the world has produced." He also said, "I am sure the House does not agree that we should make constitution an Elephantine one." Paradise of the lawyers. According to the critics, the Indian constitution is too legalistic and very complicated. They opined that the legal language and the phraseology adopted in the constitution make it a complex document. The same Sir Ivor Jennings called it a lawyer's paradise. In the context, H.K. Maheshwari, a member of Constituent Assembly, observed, "The draft tends to make people more litigious, more inclined to go to the law courts, less truthful, and less likely to follow the methods of truth and non-violence. If I may say so, draft is really a lawyer's paradise. It opens up vast avenues to litigation and give our able and ingenious lawyers a plenty of work to do." Similarly, P.R. Deshmukh, another member of the Constituent Assembly, said, "I should, however, like to say that the draft of the articles that have been brought before the House by Dr. Ambedkar seems to my mind to be far too ponderous, like the ponderous tomes of the Law Manual. A document dealing with the Constitution hardly uses so much of padding and so much of verbiage. Perhaps it is difficult for them to compose a document which should be, to my mind, not a law manual, but a socio-political document, a vibrating, pulsating, and life-giving document. But to our misfortune, that was not to be, and we have been burdened with so much of words, and words which could have been very easily eliminated."